So as you saw, Catherine Nicholson's here with Business this week. You're going to start with a look at the markets, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We're going to take a look at what's been happening in Asia, where trade's been underway while we've been getting into our day. Tokyo's Nikkei losing to start the week, down around 0.9% there, we can see at the close. Now, we've seen some profit taking happening there at the start of the new trading week. And the rest you can see, not a great deal of movement. Hong Kong's Hang Seng down, but only ever so slightly. On the US markets, in terms of how things closed up on Friday, we actually saw some very, very good results for equities traders over there. The US markets seeing their best week in 13 months, in more than a year. So that's how things closed up on Friday. Will that be a signal for the European markets, which will be opening up pretty soon?
Okay, we're going to talk about the banking crisis now of 2008. How could you forget that? It's still, of course, casting its long shadow. And today we have news on new bank regulations that put a bit of a smile back on the bankers' faces.
Yes, now this is a little bit complicated, so I'll try and make it simple. 2 years after the crash in 2010, new rules were agreed on by what's called the Basel Committee. This is a group of regulators from 27 countries. They came up with these rules called the Basel Standards, and it was about forcing banks to have a financial cushion to fall back on if there should ever be another kind of crash. Of course, we know the banks stopped lending to each other, so the idea was to give them their own liquidity that they could fall back on rather than trying to borrow from each other or from governments. Trouble is, though, the banks didn't like it. They said that the rules were very costly for them. It was very limiting the kinds of assets that they could have in this liquidity cushion, we can call it. So let's have a look at what's just been agreed to ease up on those regulations. There is an expansion on the range of assets that banks can hold, and banks say, as I said, that this will lower their costs. They've also pushed back the start date for these minimum liquidity rules. Originally, it was meant to come in on the 1st of January 2015. No more. That's going to be pushed back for another 4 years. On the 1st of January 2015, they will have to have some of this cushion, 60% of it, but the full 100% will come in 4 years later.
Okay, so generally, being seen as good or bad?
Well, by the bankers, seen as very good. As I said, it's going to cost them a bit less, these different ranges of assets that they can have. Mervyn King, the head of the Bank of England, he's very pleased, says this is very significant. It is the first time in history that we've had this kind of rule brought in. However, some analysts pointing out that there might be some trouble in the type of assets that they're allowed. For example, mortgage-backed securities. And you probably remember that bad mortgages were a big part of the reason for this whole financial crash in the first place. So people saying perhaps we need to be a little bit more careful about how much we ease up on these rules.
Complicated, as she says, but beautifully explained, of course.
I hope so.
Now, here in Europe, of course, young people amongst those hardest hit by the ongoing economic crisis. Across the EU, more than 22% of under 25s are out of work, and that figure rises to over 50% in Greece. Ever more young people are ready to pack up their lives and move across the globe for better prospects. Here's one example for you, 27-year-old Mary Gilligan from Ireland.
Tap dancing and the blessing of a priest.
Go forth into the world.
She's moving from Ireland to Australia, hoping to land a job as a social care worker.
Yeah, so many people have gone at the moment from around home. My oldest brother, Kieran, just went to Australia 3 weeks ago, and he left with his friends. And I have a lot of friends from college that I went with, and there's a few from home that have gone out with them to Australia as well. So there's numbers, like big numbers leaving at the moment.
Like Gilligan, every month, 3,000 young unemployed leave Ireland.
It's a big step. You know, Australia is so far away, and especially even looking at the pictures of it now, it's definitely a big eye-opener. But you'd be excited about the change, definitely. From what I've heard, the job prospects for a social care worker are great outside in Australia, that they're really looking for people in the social care and nursing. So hopefully I will be lucky enough to get something in that area once I go.
While she hasn't found a job yet, Gilligan hopes her network of friends and relatives in Australia will help her settle down.
Yeah, interesting tale there. One being replicated, isn't it?
Yeah, plenty of people all across Europe. Of course, that's somebody in Ireland, but we've had French people perfecting their English to go to the United States, Spaniards looking to South America. When I reported in Greece, there were plenty of young Greeks saying, we're out of here, we're going. Of course, they've got the European passport, so they can head to more prosperous European countries, but a lot of people leaving the continent altogether.
Here in France, the controversial tax on the wealthiest citizens is still in the news, isn't it?
Yes, at the weekend, as you have been reporting in the news bulletin, Gerard Depardieu
off again.
Yes, picked up his Russian passport and
Yeah.
heading off to the snow, perhaps. Maybe more millionaires will follow him after the latest news. The French economy minister said yesterday that this 75% tax rate on the richest citizens will be extended for the whole of François Hollande's term. That's 5 years in office. It was initially planned to be in place for just 2 years. However, he is promising that there won't be any other new tax increases before the end of François Hollande's term in office. Pierre Moscovici took to the airwaves yesterday to try and convince voters about his plans. Take a listen.
From 2013 and 2014, we'll be in a state of stability. I'm telling you, there's no intention of having some kind of fiscal slamming in this country. We've used our fiscal tools this year, and from next year, we'll move on to other things.
One for the techies out there. French government getting involved in a row over an internet provider blocking online ads.
Yeah, personally, I find online ads a bit annoying, but
Very.
but they are the lifeblood of a lot of websites. Of course, they make most of their money through these web ads. Free, an internet provider here in France, has been blocking online ads via its latest incarnation of its Digibox. Website's really up in arms. There are rumours that it could be to do with a long-running spat with Google, which obviously really relies on the ads. Now, as of this morning, the company has temporarily stopped blocking those ads, but it could just be a temporary measure. And internet executives have been hauled into the office of the Digital Economy Minister, Fleur Pellerin, to try and sort all of this out. So this is very much a rumble that is going to keep rumbling on, we think.
OK, and more talks going on in France. This is about the future of Virgin Megastores here.
Yeah, representatives of workers and the company meeting today to try and see if they can sort out some kind of a future. There's 1,000 employees facing unemployment after the company said on Friday that it is facing insolvency. 22 million euros of debts that it simply cannot pay. Of course, this is pretty much a sign of the times for the music industry. People move to online purchases and digital.
OK, now big business story going on in Egypt at the moment. The country's leaders getting busy trying to avert a financial crisis, aren't they?
Yes, and today a senior official from the International Monetary Fund is heading to Cairo for very important talks. He's going to meet government officials to try and see if they can sort out a deal on a $4.8 billion loan. The prolonged unrest in Egypt has taken quite a heavy toll on the country's economy. It also halted the talks with the IMF for a while. Our correspondent in Cairo, Alexandre Buccianti, is on the line for us now to tell us a bit more. Alexandre, this is a big test for a new finance minister, only just named at the weekend. How likely is he to get this deal agreed?
Well, it will be quite difficult since he is specialized in Islamic economy. He is not at all a person that already had any thing to do with the IMF. On the other hand, he also have big problems on the economical level. He has a huge deficit budget. He also has a problem with reserves in the central bank. He only has $15 billion, which is sufficient for 3 months' import. If it goes less than that, it will be a very problematic situation. And plus, there is no more practically investment, and tourism is in a catastrophic state. On the other hand, he may argue that, in fact, Egypt is now having a sort of political stability, a new constitution, and Egypt made an effort with the devaluation of the Egyptian pound that lost 5% against the dollar. And he also can count on American support. But the problem is that the IMF will ask for new taxes, and the government had those taxes a month ago, but he had to back down because of popular anger. And he has another problem, subsidies. If he gets rid of some of the subsidies, it will be very difficult for Egyptians to continue to live. Let's not forget that 40% of them are living with less than $2 a day.
So as we can see, very critical talks going on there in Cairo. Thanks very much, Alexandre Buccianti, reporting there for us from Cairo.
Catherine, thanks very much. That's Catherine Nicholson with The Business all this week here on France 24. Cyril has the latest news after the break. Stay with us.